From the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., Cole on Congress. The program discussing national issues that affect Oklahoma. Your host, U.S. Representative Tom Cole.
Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Cole on Congress. Today we're pleased to have one of the new members of the 113th Congress from Illinois, Congressman Rodney Davis. Rodney was recently elected to represent the 13th District of Illinois and currently serves on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the Agriculture Committee. But the thing I love about you is, other than being smarter, better looking, and much younger, you remind me of me a long time ago, because I love your background. You really one of the guys like Joe Bonner, who's leaving us now from Alabama, who worked in the trenches for a long time as a congressional staffer, did it as I did many years ago back in the district, sort of alternating between congressional work and every campaign season. I'm sure they furloughed you and put you out in the trenches to try and do the tough work of winning elections. And now all of a sudden, bingo, very unexpectedly, here you are in the Congress of the United States. So if you would, tell our listeners, our viewers, a little bit about the road that got you here, because I think it's a fascinating road and a wonderful background, frankly. Explains why you are such an excellent member and honestly already a sort of a rising star in your class.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. It's an honor for me to be here, to be on your show, but it's also an honor for me to walk the halls of the Capitol. You know, as a former staffer like you, you always think, what would I say or what would I do if I was ever the member of Congress? Well, now it's a lot easier to Monday morning quarterback than it is to actually, get out and answer the tough questions. But yeah, it's pretty unique, my situation. 16 months ago, I didn't even expect to be a candidate, let alone a member of Congress. But my previous member, my predecessor, who was not the person I worked for, due to redistricting, I got moved into the new 13th district. Tim Johnson was his name. He decided to run in the primary and then withdraw. It opened up a process where the local party leaders were able to pick a nominee, and we did 6 public forums, kind of reminiscent of the Hunger Games. And
great. I was going to say the Lincoln Douglas debates, that you're also from the district that Abraham Lincoln lived in, but Hunger Games, probably a little bit more contemporary analogy.
Absolutely. On May 19th of last year, I got a text that said I had won the nomination, because nobody talks anymore, they just text. But that started off a path of a 5.5-month campaign to where we ended up being the closest Republican victory in the nation.
1,002 votes.
1,002 votes.
It must have been a late night.
It was a very late night. I'm hoping that the next time we get to declare victory a little bit sooner than that.
I think you probably will, but tell me, just the transition from what has surprised you the most? Again, you came into this business sort of knowing a lot more about being in Congress than the average person, because you'd worked with great members, you'd seen them up. John Chimkus is just, I think, one of the really outstanding members of Congress. So, but has anything surprised you at all?
What has surprised me the most is that everyone around here is so normal. You get the perception of
You're
of
destroying
what people,
your credibility with the audience right now. They're going, I don't believe that.
Even Tom Cole is normal, everyone. But this is, it's great because you get to know people on a personal level, and that's where I think we can all work together and move some very important issues forward in this country. That's what I think we've lost. You and I have similar backgrounds. We understand that we have to get back to the point where Congress has to govern once again. And we have a lot of folks that have been elected that have never seen Congress govern. And that's the thing that I think makes me a little bit more unique, is that I'm talking to sometimes folks that have been here a couple terms about regular order, what we're able to do to influence policy decisions and appropriations decisions if we can just get back to the process you and I used to take for granted. And that's where I think we can make a big difference. And the only way to do that, though, is to get to know people on a personal level, because that's when we can have an impact. And I think that's where my home state president, Mr. Obama, is failing. I don't think President Obama is somebody who likes to reach out and likes to work with others and get to know people on a personal level. And frankly, it's too bad, because when you talk to him individually, he's a very nice guy.
Yeah, no, it's similar experience back in my district, which, with all due respect, and the president was kind enough to recently visit our district in the tornadoes, disasters. He's been terrific to work with, quite honestly, in this particular area. And he's very good on Native American issues. And I've got 11 tribes in my district, so we appreciate his work in those areas. But, I mean, in my district, people, by and large, just don't like him very much. I mean, they've never voted for him. He's never carried a single county in our state, let alone in our district. So he clearly has not been able to connect with people in Oklahoma. And I think part of it is exactly this. I mean, Bill Clinton wasn't personally successful politically in Oklahoma, but a lot of Oklahomans like President Clinton. They reached out, they got to know him in the Oklahoma City bombing, where he did a great job. But he was next door from Arkansas. He was sort of our kind of person. The president is a much more insular character, and I think you put your finger on something really important, because gosh, we've got such big questions in front of us: government shutdown, debt ceiling. Obviously, we all know we need to make progress on lowering this deficit. We've made some, but we have a long way to go. But you really do have to have the personal relationships that Clinton was able to forge in this town with leaders of the opposite party. And so far, the president, for whatever reason, I'm not pointing fingers, maybe it's on our side of the aisle, but he just hasn't been able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's his personality, and it's typical of somebody who's raised in the Chicago Democrat political machine to always think that that's their way or the highway. And that's disappointing, because I think we can do so many things. I mean, you mentioned Bill Clinton. I mean, think back to 1996 when he won. No one thought the Republicans and Democrats could ever get along. I mean, remember when Newt was and he were arguing over where to sit on Air Force One? and then
probably not one of Speaker Gingrich's finer moments.
Exactly.
It is the president's plane.
Exactly, and he was hitching a ride. But remember, all that went away when, seemingly overnight, you guys came up with the balanced budget agreement of 1997, put us on a path to prosperity. I mean, those are the types of big issues that we can solve in Washington if we just have both sides sit down.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that. The other thing about your background, you're not just a congressional staffer, but you worked at the district level. I'm an old district director myself. And I think that gives you an acquaintance with the needs of the people one-on-one, and an understanding of the district, industry by industry, interest group by interest group, that's really unusual, that most, again, members don't have, because you're working with real live people with real live problems all the time. How do you structure your office, you think, differently? Because, again, you've had an experience. When I was the district director, our belief was always, we don't know what those guys up in D.C. are doing. We're the guys down here that really get this guy elected and reelected, because we're really meeting needs. And I think that's true. I think district offices are incredibly important in anybody's operation.
No, I couldn't agree more. I had a great friend and a mentor in John Shimkus who showed me how a DC and a district office can integrate and work together, all for that one common goal of serving the constituents. That's what I learned. That's who I learned under, and I try to take some of the same positive processes that I helped put in place for Mr. Shimkus and then bring him to our office. One thing I did was we hired experience. My district director used to run Ray LaHood's district offices.
Another legendary congressman.
Yeah, and he and I used to work together in Springfield. Our offices were a couple blocks away. I'm honored to have him. So we were able to have our first district office open on the day we were being sworn in, and we immediately began taking cases, helping constituents break through the bureaucracy of Washington, to get help with the IRS or INS or Social Security or Medicare. And that's what really excited me about being a former district staffer, because we've got people who understand what it takes to actually provide those government services that our constituents continually contact us about.
Well, I tell you, it's kind of a detour, but John Shimkus is such a remarkable guy. I first met him in '92. I was the executive director of the NRCC, and that was his first race, and we maxed out supporting him against Dick Durbin, and obviously wasn't successful, but he came back 4 years later. But he was just such a tough candidate. I mean, old Army major, West Point grad, you can imagine everything worked with the sort of military precision and a team-like atmosphere, but a guy with a great common touch, having been a school teacher, and he just not a lot of guys soldier to school teacher to congressman. Just an amazing guy, great mentor for you to have.
Oh, tremendous mentor. I learned that it's important to be on time.
Yeah.
I'm a West Point grad, but he is. I met him in 1992. I just graduated college, which is in Decatur, Illinois, Millikan University, that I'm proud to represent now.
That's got to be cool.
It is. I got a chance to meet John a week after I graduated, and then the rest is history. I've been with him for the last 16 years, and there's nobody that's been a bigger supporter of me and a bigger supporter of building so many individuals up here in Washington and in Illinois to go on to such a brighter future and to achieve the goals that they set. And that's the type of leader that I want to be. I want to be somebody who has an impact on young people and make their lives and achieve the goals that they want.
I don't think there's any doubt that you're going to do that, and you're already doing that. Well, let me get you off to policy now. You sit on two really important committees. Obviously, transportation is important to everybody, but agriculture in my state is like it is in Illinois. It's a key cornerstone industry, and you represent one of the most important, honestly, agricultural districts in the country. Not just in terms of farm production, but in terms of people that are involved in the industry in other ways. Archer Daniels, they're not the farmers, but they're the guys that really help make agriculture as productive as it is. You're living through your first farm bill experience right now on Ag Committee. So tell me what you liked about at least the first bill and the second bill, and this is actually very important to my constituents, how you see the agriculture debate unfolding in the next month or two as we go toward September 30th deadline.
Well, it was very interesting for me because being a district staffer, the legislative and the regulatory side of this job was the steepest part of my learning curve. But I could not have asked for a better friend on the Ag Committee than your fellow Oklahoman, Frank Lucas. Yeah. Chairman Lucas has just been a tremendous friend to me, helped me work through the process. Any questions I had, amendments that I had, Frank was just always a guy I could go to and get the best advice. Frank worked in a bipartisan fashion, just like we talked about Newt and Bill Clinton doing the same thing years ago. We put out a bill and a huge bipartisan majority out of our House.
36 to 10, and the ranking member, Colin Peterson, voted with Chairman Lucas. I thought it was a terrific product, frankly.
It was a great bill. We talk about saving money here in Washington. We need to make sure our authorizing levels are at the same levels that appropriators like you are going to be able to then reduce our deficit and begin to put a down payment on our national debt. That's why I ran. That's why so many of us are here, to leave a better country for future generations. But this bill alone, when we had the food and nutrition side and the ag side together, we saved $40 billion. That's what Oklahomans want. Yeah. That's what Illinoisans want. And it frustrated me because both Republicans and Democrats made that bill fail. And it was my first lesson as I stood on the floor and saw that bill go down, one that I worked hard for and whipped for. And then I see the other side, Nancy Pelosi, leading cheers. And I realized that bill wasn't taken down because it was bad policy. That bill was taken down because of pure, utter partisan politics. And I'm glad we came back. Chairman Lucas rebounded, just like everyone in Oklahoma does after the disasters that you've seen. This is a guy who may not have agreed that splitting the bill was the best path, but to get a true ag policy that's going to save taxpayers billions, but also provide, like in my case, in Illinois, crop insurance is our number one issue. This was such a good geographically balanced bill that dealt with different ag sectors in our country in different ways and was the most beneficial way possible for each of the geographic areas. That's why when we passed this other bill, we still saved $20 billion. But I find it funny, I talked to some of our fiscal conservatives who voted against the first one, and I remind them that, you're not going to get any structural reforms to food stamps. You're not going to save the $20 billion that we had initially in that first bill. And that is a huge, huge missed opportunity out here in Washington to do that. And frankly, I don't think the Democrats and Debbie Stabenow in the Senate have any reason to do anything on the food stamp program because they don't want to save a single penny or make a single reform.
I couldn't agree more. And this is a case of making the the perfect the enemy of the good. And we probably all would have gone further in the direction that some of the folks on the right wanted to go if the votes were there. But you can't bring down the bill because it's not conservative enough, and then end up with a product that's worse than what you had. And that's where we're headed. Now, in my discussions with Chairman Lucas, he's we're going to come back with a nutrition bill in September. We'll see if we can pass that. But no matter what it is, the opportunity that we had in front of us that we let slip through our fingers to actually reform an entitlement program and save billions of dollars. I think it was political immaturity on the side of some of the folks on the right, and it was partisanship, extreme partisanship on the left, where they simply won't accept any kind of savings in this area at all.
No, you're right. I mean, it was as simple as this. A vote against that farm bill was a vote to spend $40 billion that we don't have here in America. And it was as simple as that. Structural reforms that everyone on our side has been asking for in both the ag and the food nutrition side, it was all there. And we missed that opportunity, and it pushed us back on our schedule. We could have addressed some other issues out here that are very important to the folks back in Illinois and Oklahoma, but because of that failure, we now had to delay that opportunity, and hopefully we're going to be able to get to those issues in September and beyond.
Well, give me your assessment of that. That's a pretty critical point. Let's assume pass or not. I mean, we have a vehicle now to go to conference, that is to sit down with our colleagues on the other side of the rotunda, not the aisle, in the United States Senate, where they've passed a farm bill and actually hammer out something. So what do you think the odds are that we actually get a farm bill negotiated and across the floor by September 30th?
Well, anytime you deal with the House of Lords, they work at a very, very slow pace.
You're already a House, you've got that little edge about senators. That's good.
Oh, that's right. I'm waiting for them to bring back the old powdered wigs, But, I do think we can get the ag side reconciled. I mean, really, the Senate bill on the ag side and the House bill aren't that much different. And we can work out our differences, and Chairman Lucas will be leading that conference, and I think Oklahoma should be proud that a guy like him
actually. He's very, very popular at home.
Oh, he is doing a tremendous job in a position that seems to be a no-win situation. No matter what decision you make, which is something we deal with every day, you make somebody mad. But Frank's got that great personality and the ability to work with everyone, and I can't thank him enough. But I think we'll get the ag side done. Now, here's where I may differ in my opinion, and I hope I'm wrong, Tom. I really, really do. I think that the Democrats in the Senate will sit back and say, we don't even want to touch the food and nutrition side. We don't want to end the heat and eat provision, which, by a simple process of changing the eligibility factor for those to get on food and nutrition benefits from getting $1 in light heat benefits to $20, which is not a high barometer to reach. Yep. $20 a month. That saves taxpayers $8 billion. I don't think we're going to get that savings. I don't think we're going to see any structural reforms, because if we do nothing, because of the first farm bill and because it failed, if we do nothing, the Democrats don't have to touch food and nutrition. And they don't want to even cut the $4 billion that the Senate bill has. That's why I think we'll be stuck with current programs on the food and nutrition side, but at least give us a long-term ag bill. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we can bring things together and really reform the system and save the billions that you and I talk about saving and want to save. But I'm just not too sure the Democrats are going to give us that opportunity to do that.
Well, I share your concern, quite frankly. Now, I have a lot of faith that Chairman Lucas is a pretty wily guy, and once he's in negotiations, if anything can be salvaged in terms of reducing the cost and actually having common sense reforms in our food stamp programs, which have doubled in size under President Bush and then doubled again under this president. In what's supposed to be a recovery, we've still got food stamp consumption going up. 1 out of every 7 Americans use them. There's no doubt most of those people need the help. That's fine. But I guarantee you almost everybody, again, that's watching or seeing the show has seen some abuse in that program when they've been standing in line at their local convenience store or shopping center or whatever. They've seen folks that they know should not have that benefit, using that benefit and exploiting it, and in that sense jeopardizing the needy that are on the program.
No, you're right, and that's what our bill did. It ensured that food stamps and benefits got to those who need them, got to those who deserve them the most. And that's what we have to do as a society. We have to provide that safety net for those who can't find a job, families who are down on their luck right now. And that's what we need to focus on. Unfortunately, the debate goes back to how do we expand or not expand? And how do we stop the waste, the mismanagement, the fraud in the food stamp program? And I think we all agree in a bipartisan way that needs to be done. But it's an easy vote for us to make sure we make that happen. But the other side has seen how the food and nutrition benefits have doubled over the last 4 years. And I think it was a start back during the stimulus bill, the Recovery Act, that $1 trillion boondoggle that was put forth as an infrastructure bill, and we know that it was only about 8% infrastructure. Yeah. But I remember as a staffer back then seeing the breakdown and seeing how millions upon millions were going to be spent for additional food stamp benefits. And I thought to myself back then, if there was somebody who qualified for food stamps and weren't getting them, wouldn't they call their congressman for some help? And we had 0 calls. So I think you could see what the trend was back then, and ironically, it was put into a bill that was supposed to lower unemployment and thus lower the need for food stamp benefits. That's where I think the process began to get off track, and we need to put it back on track. And I think Chairman Lucas will lead us in the discussion to make that happen.
He did. And of course, you've got the other side, the agricultural side, and you touched in your comments on crop insurance. Again, very important in my area as well, given the volatility of climate on the plains and droughts and what happens. It's an amazingly challenging industry for anybody to be in. I think one of the things that people forget sometimes is we spend less on food as a percentage of our personal income than anybody in the world. Yeah. And we produce enough food. Back in 1941, I remember looking at a census, and 1 out of every 5 Americans, 19%, lived and worked on a farm or a ranch. Now you're down to less than 3%, and they're feeding 300+ million people and exporting around the world and doing it at an incredible bargain rate. And so these programs, I always tell folks that, why are we doing these ag programs? I said, stop and think. This is a part of the economy that's not broke, that's actually working extraordinarily well and benefiting every single American. You ought to think long and hard before you start dismantling a system that has proven to be that productive and deliver those kind of benefits that is cheap, good, nutritious food to every single American.
I could not agree more. I mean, that's your area, my area. We take for granted how we feed the world. I mean, it's not just feeding Americans, but we export so many crops that feed.
We export 80% of our wheat in Oklahoma beyond the continental United States.
I'm in corn and soybean country, and it is some of the richest and priciest farmland in America. But we have, like your district too, I'm sure, we have that whole. We have the whole cycle of the agricultural sector. Yep. We've got the family farm, and we've got the processors. I've got some of the large agribusinesses, like you mentioned, ADM, and GSI is headquartered in my district, where many of my old high school classmates work still today at that great plant 10 miles from my house. Worldwide ag leaders are in mid-America, where we live and where we serve, and you are completely correct. Ag is not broken. That's why today I'm going to offer an amendment to the RAINS Act and to ensure that our family farms don't have to deal with decisions from the EPA where they want to treat milk spills like oil spills.
Yeah.
Milk,
it's unbelievable.
Milk like the Exxon Valdez. I mean, come on. I'm going to be on the floor today to offer that amendment up to give ag a seat at the table when the EPA comes up with these crazy ideas.
Yeah. It's a great amendment. Let me. We don't have a lot of time left, but I want to take you to your other committee too, because you're serving with another one of my colleagues. We love Mark Wayne Mullen in Oklahoma. We think he is authentic Eastern Oklahoma. But
He's a
again,
great guy.
He is a great guy.
One of my good friends out here in the freshman class.
All the right reasons. Again, the background very different than ours. I mean, totally private sector, very successful. Took a fail, and so he brings that kind of enthusiasm, but also can-do attitude. So tell me, in transportation, what are you focused on? What do you see as the big challenges in front of us?
Well, I'm focused right now on the Water Resource and Development Act. I represent a district that butts up against the Mississippi River, and as you know, our ag sector, my coal mining jobs in my district depend upon that navigation channel being open. And I just have seen nothing but stagnation when it comes to river issues and the Corps of Engineers, and we need to reform the system. And I think we're going to do that with a WRDA bill coming up in September. I know Mark Wayne has really been working hard on this.
Well, this is an area you guys have in common, because he's got the Kerr-McClellan Waterway, which makes Tulsa an inland port, and the amount, again, of agricultural produce that we move that way. And the amount of heavy oil equipment, things like that. I mean, that's absolutely integral to our lifeline, and our economy in the state. So you guys have a natural interest to work together there.
Oh, very much so. And he and I know, are going to work on the WRDA bill. Obviously, we'd like to actually address a highway reauthorization. I want to see a long-term strategy. You and I have seen the benefits of a long-term highway bill and how that actually improves our economy, how it gets to the infrastructure rebuilding and infrastructure investment that was sold to us in that $1 trillion stimulus bill. That's how we get back to that regular order we talked about earlier. And one thing I want your listeners to do too is ask Mark Wayne when you see him about our trek over to a restaurant a few weeks ago where we had an interesting experience here in Washington, D.C.
Well, you're going to have to tell me about that. You can't tease me like that and not...
Never trust David Valadeo to Google a good restaurant here in Washington, D.C. That's what we learned.
One of the freshmen, a great guy, serves with me on appropriations. You have a really good class. I mean, you guys ran in a difficult year. You were sort of the the eye of the storm. I mean, to be running in the president's home state when the president's on the ballot and the opposite party is a pretty tough situation to be in. And the fact that you pulled it out, I mean, says a lot about your political skills. But again, all your class came through. 2010 is a great class and a majority-making class, but they got to run with the wind at their back. All of you guys had to run with the wind in your face.
Yeah, it was interesting in Illinois. I mean, we had the Democrats control everything in our state house and our governor's mansion. So the map that was drawn was to elect Democrats. I was the only targeted race that saw a Republican victory, so my 5 other freshmen with me are all Democrats here from Illinois. Yeah. They're good people too, and we were able to work together on some transportation and some agricultural issues, which is what we should do. But it's, being the lone Republican that won in Obama's home state means that I am his #1 target in the nation.
Yeah, I think they're coming again for you. I hate to say it, Rodney, but you're gonna get to have another fun experience down the road.
Absolutely, Illinois is no Oklahoma when it comes to politics.
Yeah, sadly so. Sadly so. Well, we've got literally a matter of 40 seconds left. You got any parting thought on what you want to get done in the remainder of your first term?
Well, I had the honor of getting my first bill signed into law. It's not one that is going to save the world by any means, but we named the new bridge over the Mississippi River the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge.
Hey, that's for guys my age. You can name something after Stan Musial. We love it.
Well, absolutely. But you know what? I tell people all the time, if we can come together and work in a bipartisan way on some of these little issues, then maybe we get back to what we talked about earlier, where we get to personalities. Then we can really come up with the solutions that you guys came up with in the past, like the balanced budget agreement of '97. Those are the types of things that we have to have in Washington again, Tom, and I look forward to being on your team to help make some of those happen.
Well, I look forward to working with you. You're off to a great start, got a brilliant future, and it's been great having you on the show.
Well, thank you, and please give my best to Jim Langford and Jim Bridenstine, too. Great members.
Will do.
Thank you.
Good to have you.
You too.